Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I hope you're going to stay, and if you're an oldie, welcome back. It's good to have you here as always, and I really appreciate your support, guys. In today's video, I'm just going to have a little chit chat, if you can call it that, about basically why I chose to become an environmental lawyer, like why I chose to specialize in that field specifically. I often get asked questions like, why environmental law? There's so many things you can do with law, but why did you pick environmental law specifically? And I just thought I should do like a little video explaining it, and hopefully you'll understand my decision and also sort of like understand what environmental law is about. I mean, I do plan on doing like a series or something explaining more about environmental law, so this video will not be definitive, but yeah, just like as a starting point, explaining my decision and why I chose to do that. I feel like the first thing I actually need to talk about is why I became a lawyer in the first place. Environmental law is a specialization, but obviously there's something that leads you to law school in the first place. And for me, I think I'd say I had certain incidences in my younger life that actually got me into law. So without saying too much, without getting into a lot of detail because it's quite a long story. So basically, I grew up in Zimbabwe, but at some point, my whole family was based in South Africa. So I was left in Zim to complete school, and I had to travel to South Africa quite a lot alone. And because of where my school was, it was much better or much more affordable for me to use a bus to travel to South Africa than, going all the way to Harare. So for those of you who don't know, I went to high school in Masvingo and Kyle. So I had to like either go to Harare, take a flight, then go to Joburg, which was quite difficult because there was no one to come and pick me up to take me to Harare in the first place. So I had to like mostly take a bus, and yeah, because Masvingo is quite central, there were a lot of buses actually that would be coming to Joburg. So that's what I ended up doing. And yeah, so what actually happened was, when you're traveling and you are a foreigner, sometimes it's very difficult to travel or to just stay or live in a different country. So sometimes I would find situations where I'm just at the border and even immigration officers is just being mean, like, what do you want in our country? Call your names like Makwerekwere, what do you want in our country? And you just felt like you're not welcome. And I think at some point I had to actually ask myself, like, do you lose your rights as a human being the minute you enter a foreign country, or are they protected? Like, to what extent are foreigners actually protected in a foreign country, or you're only protected when you're in your home country? So that is where it started. And obviously, because I got more curious and I really needed answers to this, I then sort of developed an interest in law and social justice. It's quite funny. It really started from an immigration point of view and the experiences I faced, like, during those journeys that I used to take, going home and going back to school and all of that. But at some point in my life, I think I was now around 16 or so, I think it was quite, I watched something around environmental issues. So I think it was a documentary of the people in the DRC or something, and basically the issue there was around forestry. So they're getting their trees cut down, and a lot of trees have been cut down, and communities are complaining because of all of that, soil erosion and the loss of livelihoods that they were going through as a result of all of that. etc. And there's also like issues around fishing and a whole lot of issues. And I thought that was very interesting because I thought, what is the remedy for this, for these communities? Like, if you're faced with such situations, what do you do? Do you just look and complain and nothing happens, or there's actually like a law that protects those people, and what is that law? So it got me into like looking into these issues, and I'm actually like, wait, what are all these issues? What are they based on? What are they founded on? Like, what is this? And that's basically when I stumbled upon environmental law, because the more I read about the issues, the more I was actually like, oh wow, I'd actually want to be that person who stands up for these people who go through all these environmental issues, and sometimes they don't even know how to stand up for themselves. They don't know where to go. They don't know, what remedies are available for them. And also just the environment itself, like, we need to protect it, because once you're cutting down trees and you're not replacing them, what do you expect to happen? They do contribute a lot to the ecosystem, to human lives. And I wanted to be the person who stands up for the environment, because also, unlike people, trees don't speak for themselves, water doesn't speak for itself, air doesn't speak for itself. I mean, you can tell that it's suffering when it's polluted, but it's not going to say, hey, you're polluting me, stop it. Somebody else needs to step in and actually say it on their behalf. And I thought, well, I could be that person after all. So I guess, like, I can say how everything worked out was basically like, it's rooted in human rights, but it's also about more exposure and actually saying there's issues here that nobody's really talking about, but people are suffering. So that's how I got into law and pursued a law degree, and now I am here. A common question that a lot of people ask is, why environmental law? What is environment? Dictionary definition of environment is actually the surroundings within which human beings exist, which is made up of land, water, and atmosphere of the earth, plants and animals, the relationships between these natural resources and animals, and the conditions that influence human health and well-being. So that's basically what environmental law is protecting. It's basically what it's about. When you're talking about what is environment, that is what we are referring to. What is environmental law? Because that's a question that a lot of people ask me when I tell them, because apparently it's something new. People are like, what is that? There's common law that people already know, like, your criminal law, the divorce stuff, family, corporates, and all of that. But the minute you say environmental law, people are like, what is that? So environmental law basically refers to laws, policies, or principles which seek to regulate environmental management. So for example, pollution control laws around water, like water conservation, water supply, laws around, the conservation of land, how you use land, health issues. It's a wide range of things, and the laws that actually regulate those things fall under environmental law. Common environmental issues there's quite a lot of environmental issues, but I'll just stick to the stuff that I normally deal with on a daily basis. So I think the best way to actually touch this is to deal with an example. So I'm an environmental lawyer, but most of the times I'm dealing with mining issues. So when you're talking about mining issues in relation to the environment, you're talking about how when mining companies are authorized to mine, they get a wide range of licenses. So some of these licenses they get is an environmental authorization, which is basically where they make an assessment of how the activity is going to affect the environment, and depending on whether those things can be mitigated or prevent, get a license, and they say, okay, do it, but you have to do it on these conditions. So that's the environmental authorization. They have to have it. And the other thing that they have to have is like a water use license, because mining uses a lot of water, and sometimes their water sources are basically water sources that other people in the community are also using. And because mining is generally environmentally intrusive, like you cannot mine without disturbing the earth. So what then happens is, sometimes, well, most of the times, there is environmental damage. And when that happens, some mining companies, they don't remedy it and people suffer. Water is polluted, and acid mine drainage is like the worst, because then people can't even use the water anymore. And also the dust from the mining activities, it affects people, it affects their health, and some people get like respiratory illnesses. And also like sometimes when they are mining, they need to blast the mineral, and sometimes when they blast, it affects people's homes. And because mining takes place normally in rural areas, a lot of the people, the materials that build their houses are not so strong. They use what they can afford. So now they're going to get cracked windows, cracked homes. And some of the things that we look at when a case comes is, what licenses does this mining company have? So if they don't have licenses at all, it means they're in violation of environmental laws, because it is a law that they need certain licenses in order for them to mine. They need a mining right in order to mine. They need an environmental authorization in order to mine. They need a water use license in order to mine. There's like a wide variety of licenses that they need. So the fact that those licenses, they don't even have them is a violation on its own. But also, even if they do have those licenses, if they're in violation of certain conditions in those licenses, then it's also something that, that is covered by environmental law. So some of those issues are just generally water pollution from certain activities, air pollution, like say from dust, or if you stay near power stations when they are burning coal, for example, there's like a lot of greenhouse gas emissions that are just being emitted, and those pollute the air and they affect people's lives. So those are also environmental issues. Littering, I think that's the common one that a lot of people know. It's just like, don't litter, like, waste is part of environmental issues as well. How you use land, you can't mine in a residential area, for example. So all of those things are also like part of environmental law. When you're mining and you're mining in a place where you're not supposed to mine, that is an environmental violation, because you're using land for the purposes that it's not designated for. So the question is, why did I choose this area of law? I wanted to do environmental law because it's something that I got an interest in from a very young age. So it's something that always wanted to do. I remember when I was applying to law school, I said to them, I want to do environmental law, and they said to me, oh no, sweetie, you can't just come to law school and say you want to do environmental law. You first have to do your LLB, and then after that you can then specialize in environmental law. So I would say, like, it took me like 4 years to actually do the one thing I went to law school for. But why did I choose that area? I think it's because I always feel like the environment is always taking a back burner. There are certain issues that people consider as important, and it's almost like there's a rank. But environment, it's very important, but somehow it's always taking the back burner, because a lot of people, they don't take environmental issues seriously, and yet human lives depend on the health of the environment. Human beings and the environment are very connected. You can't destroy the environment and expect to survive as human beings. Firstly, there needs to be law to regulate how the environment is used. People need to be aware about this and how important the environment is to them. That is very important for them to protect it. It's very important for them to preserve it. But also, there are those people who know, but they just don't know how to enforce their rights. And I thought it would be great to just be one of those people who stand up for those people and help them navigate their way around, get their rights enforced, and be their voice when they can't speak for themselves. Everybody has a right to an environment that is not harmful to their health or well-being, and they have the right to have the environment protected for both present and future generations. But somehow that right is not enforced as it should be, or implemented as it should be. There's a whole range of infringements on that right, and quite a lot of people, they don't even know they have that right, or some think that it's like a right that is in isolation of other rights, whereas it's actually like a human right. It's linked with other rights. For example, if you infringe on the environmental rights, you will also infringe on people's rights to health in some ways, like say air pollution, water pollution can cause people to get sick, And so all of those things, it's linked. People have a right to health, they have a right to environment, they have a right to life, they have a right to water, and some of the activities you do on the environment, they impact the quality of water and the quantity of water, and thus you're infringing people's right to access to water, people's right to actually have water available to them. So everything is interlinked, and people need to see that. And I thought this could be a great area to work on, because before I watched a certain documentary, I didn't even think, oh no, there's an issue there. But then I'm like, wait, there is an issue here, and why is it nobody's talking about them? Why is it that it's so difficult for people to just sit down and talk about climate change and how it's actually affecting them, or how it's going to affect their lives? Because it is real, it's happening, and it's actually like affecting quite a lot of people's lives right now as we speak. So somebody needs to be there to actually like speak out about these issues, raise awareness around it, and stand up for those who are vulnerable and can't speak up for themselves, especially when it comes to such issues. Like I said, a lot of people, they're just suffering from environmental violations, and they don't even know that there's some legal remedies that they can use to enforce their rights. And I want to help them, I want to stand up for them, I want to equip them to actually say, listen, you have a right to a healthy environment, and this is what you can do to enforce it. And where they can't, to actually be the person going there to say, what you're doing, this decision you are making, this activity that you're doing is infringing on people's rights, so you need to stop it, or you need to do it in a particular way that will not be harmful to people's lives. So, everything just comes from the fact that we really live in a very unjust world, and ignoring the environment or not realizing people's right to a healthy environment, it only exacerbates those inequalities. Like I said earlier, everything is interlinked. One of the things that you can actually do to prevent poverty or to deal with poverty is just good environmental management, because some of the ailments of people who are like poor are exacerbated by those things. So you need to act on that. While you can be like an environmental activist without being a lawyer, I wanted to use the law to ensure environmental justice and sustainable development, like to help people who are going through all of these issues, because I feel like they're often ignored because some people think it's not an issue at all. So, that's what I wanted to do. And why I think environmental law is important and what I hope to achieve. I mean, the answer is simple. Human beings contribute the most to environmental degradation and climate change through some of the activities that we engage in. Like I gave an earlier example about mining and how it actually affects the environment and people's lives. So environmental law is therefore important because it helps to regulate human activities and their impact on the environment. Like it sort of like helps to sort of put measures in place to say, if you want to carry out this activity because it's going to damage the environment in some ways, this is how you can do it, or not do it at all. So I think it just brings like certainty into what measures are in place when we want to protect the environment from a certain activity. How do you protect people's lives when certain activities are taking place? How do you regulate certain activities, in the interest of environment and people? And it's also good for people to know that there's a legal remedy available to them in cases of environmental violations. I mean, it's one thing to say, don't do this, but also in addition to that, people need to know that they can actually go to court, or there is a law that they can use to stop certain activities from happening, or to enforce their rights, or to get remedies after a violation has already taken place. So it's very good to actually like have a law in place to regulate environmental management and activities that have an impact on the environment. And my wish is for people to realize that human beings and the environment are intertwined, and protecting the environment is basically protecting humanity, and therefore it's everybody's business to care about what happens to the environment and to care about climate change issues. I know some people think that it's other people's business to do that, it's the scientists' business. I think somebody said the developed world needs to come and fix these issues. It's not our business as African countries or something like that. And I thought, no, it is our business, because at the end of the day, we are going to be the most affected by these issues. We are going to suffer. We might even lose our loved ones or our own lives if we don't do anything about it. So I think my wish is just for people to be aware, to be educated around these issues, and for people to know that there is a remedy available for them when there are environmental violations in their area or suspected violations. There's always like a remedy or a law somewhere that they can use. And also like people to just know what the law is. If you're living in a mining affected area, it's important for you to know what the law is with regards to mining, and what can you as a community do in cases of violations, or generally like what is your participation as a community when it comes to certain activities. So I think my wish is for people to be equipped with such information, to be empowered to know, because ultimately we need to develop together. We need to develop sustainably without leaving anybody behind, without compromising the health of people or compromising the quality and health of the environment. Everything has to happen in a balance. And thank you guys for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this video, and I look forward to disseminating more environmental issues with you guys. I hope you guys will also enjoy them and get to love them and be passionate about them as much as I am. Like, share this video, and I'd love to see any comments that you might have about it, any questions you might have about the environment, about environmental law in general, or if you have any issues that are happening that are environmentally related, or if you want to study there and you've got questions around how you go about it, I'm happy to answer all of them.